Okay, so it's just gone 4:30 in London, so being asked to resume our kind of European wrap, if you like, of the day. So just a short summary. We'll try to encapsulate some of the main moves of the session and some of the main news events. First of all, just quickly jumping in on oil then, just to wrap things up on the day. We've obviously seen just last minute or two a breach of fairly significant level technically. Short term, that initial move that was seen overnight in a fairly illiquid part of the session, just before midnight really yesterday, and we've just broken that now to trade up about $1 on the session. But if you look slightly longer time frame, you can see here a crude oil that really, since the communication from the strategy about the extension from OPEC, the commitment and the ability to get that deal over the line, then with this global economic story ongoing, the kind of optimism for global growth going forward is helping this kind of narrative continue for the moment with crude oil. So technically then, just looking at the area of significance going back to the 2015 highs, so certainly multi-year highs once again for crude, and a price point which certainly does open up the prospect technically of some further scope for further gains here, because fundamentally all the same reasoning for the climb that we've had still remains kind of in play for the moment. I guess short term, you're going to have to look out for the API crude oil inventories, of course, later on this evening. Just get an update momentarily, I guess, more short term for the infantry situation, and then we'll get the DOEs to follow. But that last little pop, you can just see breaking that price point from overnight, and it's come right back down to that figure at 62.56 at the moment. So certainly likely lending a little bit of a hand to the equity performance today. We're talking about the consecutive gains that we've seen thus far in US indices, and although it has seen some volatility, exception being the Nasdaq, although that is now back into positive territory, but US indices continuing to see further upside. Looking at the S&P here, so we're sitting just north of the R2 level for the moment. Just seeing some updates on Trump's timetable on Twitter here. Trump said to plan to attend the Davos Economic Forum. For those who are not familiar with Davos, that's when all the movers and shakers, if you like, of the of economics and political world kind of come together to talk finance, if you like. The Davos meeting this year, just see if I can quickly see when that is actually taking place, but normally occurs at the beginning of the year. And certainly if Trump is there, that will be one to watch, just given the emphasis now on his next direction of his fiscal plans, if you like, whether that be infrastructure spending, further pushes for deregulating the market and so on and so forth. So him appearing definitely will be a key focus for the markets, just given the underlying positivity that we've seen in this US equity performance ever really since the corporate tax deal got pushed over the line. Other things from today, just to have a quick skim through. US equity wise, I did see this statistic, thought I'd share. 79 of the S&P 500 obviously stocks individually are now at record highs, given the uncharted territory that we're printing at the moment in the US indices. So big names: Microsoft, UPS, eBay, Boeing, Caterpillar, Amazon, you name it, Walmart, all at the best levels that they've ever been. Does mean that this is something we were looking at earlier from an equity strategist point of view, when they would have issued their outlook for 2018. 3 of those, I think it's actually 4 now, it includes the likes of HSBC, for example. We've already hit their year-end S&P target of 2750. A lot of these banks coming out and obviously revising this, given the fact that we're about to go into US earnings season, and people are quite optimistic going into that. We've already seen Target, one of the main large US retailers, they've upgraded their forecasts going forward. That happened pre-market today, which is obviously a positive signal as well for the US economic kind of story on a consumer spending level. Goldman Sachs, what are they saying? From a bank point of view, saying doesn't fear an equity bear market even as rally heats up. They do kind of go on with their kind of thinking the rally that set equities on fire this year raises the risks of a market correction, though a bear market unlikely. Is kind of the way that they're looking at things. Obviously, it's a combination of kind of more positive sentiment about improving economic data, the American tax reform, and so on and so forth, that's helping add the kind of positivity at the moment. One of the other things we've had from a news point of view, it's been pretty light on the data front. This is to be, well, as expected, I guess, given the emphasis is towards the latter part of the week with US CPI and retail sales coming on Friday. But you did have this euro area unemployment rate, which has now dropped to the lowest level since 2009. Now, although this hasn't come to the rescue of euro dollar, which as a pair has traded lower, this does have some consideration for the potential knock-on effects to inflationary conditions in the eurozone area. By this I mean that joblessness in the euro area, having declined to its lowest level since the early part of 2009, raises the prospect of tighter jobs market, finally putting some upward pressure on wages, keenly anticipated by, of course, the ECB. So looking at this chart here, you can see the annual GDP growth and this kind of continued story we've seen since the mid part of 2016 of improving economy, and therefore net this very aggressive really improvement, if anything, of the unemployment situation, and how the ECB, much like other central banks, most notably the Fed, looking for these tightening conditions to equate into eventually re-emergence of more inflationary conditions. A quick look at the calendar, and then what I'm going to do is hand you over to Sam, who's going to talk through a couple of the charts and opportunities that he saw in the market today, and then we'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. So looking at the schedule for tomorrow's session, a little bit of a overnight focus on China from an inflationary point of view. So looking out for the latest CPI and PPI prints, they're going to come overnight at around 1:30 AM, so maybe worth looking at as well if you're looking at the Aussie currency in the overnight session. Otherwise, from the UK, trade balance, construction data, manufacturing industrial output figures as well, all coming as a cluster of activity at 9:30 tomorrow morning. In the US, import and export prices, and then your crude oil inventory numbers, which you'll get. And just remember, setting the scene will be your API inventory numbers, which come out later. Okay, just going to hand you over to Sam then, and he'll finish off things. So have a good evening, guys.
Hi guys, hope you've all had a good day, and as Ant mentioned, just going to run through a couple of the charts now. In fact, there's one market I was just looking at as we're speaking was the Dow Jones, and obviously another new high for equity markets for the Dow and S&P today, and we just had this further push here, and you can see if I just draw this little trend line on here, we just break of that triangle through and just made a new all-time high as of about 30 seconds ago. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get a push through here, flicking over as well to oil. As mentioned, that's obviously gone through that 2015 high and continuing to go, just another push literally as we speak. Certain trades today were quite good from the morning. If we have a look here at the, well, what was the low overnight low Asian session low around the pivot area, and the pivot lower the time frame down here, you can see once we did break through there, it was really a solid sort of push all the way down to that S1 area. Decent trade there for the pound. Bit of dollar strength coming in as well, as we saw the euro push to, well, it's low. The classic of the S1 area has acted quite well this morning as well. You can see was the low, 1 test 2 3, then you get the breakthrough. I know some of the live traders here took that on. I'll just circle that area around here. They're targeting what was then at the time the new low of the day, and we're still nicely underneath that S1 area. S&P just before, if I just put this onto a 15-minute time frame, just before the cash open, you can see how actually it's still marked up here what was the high of the day. Once, twice, 3 times, then you get the push on through to that R1, and this area here before we did finally get that push was as a result of that that cash open noise there from 230. FTSE, couple of decent opportunities with the pound coming under a bit of pressure. The classic off the pivot, you can see here breakthrough, worked once, twice, and it's almost looking to sort of hold out again there as the FTSE's pushed on that weaker pound. Elsewhere, if you have a look, Australian dollar this morning pushed down lower with that dollar strength. The retracement came up to some decent areas of what was supports and now resistance from yesterday and overnight, before coming back down to make a new low in the mid-afternoon, sort of 2:45 time. So a couple of decent opportunities as volume looks to start coming back from the new year. Gold as well, as you can see here, if I just make that slightly bigger just to finish up, you can see once that did break through these lows, we had quite a decent push down and found support, albeit a tiny push through from that low of the 4th afternoon. Just to finish actually on oil, seeing as we are pushing through, there was another opportunity that we saw. If I just move these lines and continuing this trend, obviously we had a bit of profit taking perhaps overnight, and you can see this trend down lower here, respected pretty well over the last few days from Friday, Thursday last week, and then overnight and today, and it's been one directional since then and just pushing on through. In fact, we're just coming back to test that Asian session high as we speak. But I hope you all had a good day. Dow Jones still pushing, oil as well.